welcome to Not Sure This Matters. We got Fish, Shoots, Mark on a Sunday. Let's roll. Oh, and Marcus.
Yeah,
sorry.
film guy.
And Marcus, film guy.
Gotta have Marcus.
So
Check the YouTube channel, guys.
So there's like a coming soon on YouTube. Last time I checked, it's coming live in 2 days.
No, it's there.
But that was like 2
Oh,
days
it's up
ago.
now?
Yeah, YouTube's up and running.
Okay.
That's so last year. Happy New Year, guys.
Yeah, Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
And on the Instagram accounts, there's a link to it.
Okay.
We'll post it again.
So click that. A lot of activity.
A lot of activity.
For all those emails.
I've been getting the New York Times delivered to my driveway every single day since January 1st.
No way.
Oh.
But I don't subscribe to the New York Times.
Oh.
It's for someone else?
I guess. So the first couple of days I would lean it up against my mailbox in case somebody was like looking for their paper.
Yeah.
But nobody took it and they just keep coming.
It's not a bad paper to have.
Well, they used to do they'd send you it, and then like in one of those, like let's say week 2, you'll get a card being like, do you want your subscription to continue?
Are you enjoying this?
Yeah.
So I didn't consider it. So I subscribed to the New York Times online.
Oh, that's how they got you.
That's how they got me.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm glad I brought it up. I was going to say, what should I do?
$3.99
I feel
a
guilty
month or
reading
something.
the paper. No, it's $25.
They'll send you a bill at
A
some
month?
point.
Yeah.
How much?
$25? Does that sound right?
Seems
Yeah.
awfully cheap.
Well, I should know this because I used to subscribe to them online, and then I tried to cancel it.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't respond to the cancellation, so it went like 3-4 months without a response. So
Isn't that nice?
Finally, I essentially wrote like hey, fuck it, like quit.
They're smart. They make it impossible to leave
Yeah,
all
it
those
was
places.
really hard.
But
But I
that's
got-
not our problem. You have to deal with our web platform.
Yeah, I got a doctor's note though.
Yeah.
I wrote a
That's
note.
good.
I was like,
That's
I
good.
can't see anymore.
You can't prescribe yourself medicine, could you? Can doctors do that?
Schedule 1, but no schedule 2 through 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so
the ones
like
you
Schedule
want.
1.
Like I could do like
Garden variety.
antibiotics,
Oh, yeah.
most of them like random shit. But if I try to,
Z-Pack.
yeah, but if I try to do any sort of testosterone or anything like unrelated to non-monitored substances, it would be impossible.
So do you have a doctor?
Do I have a doctor?
Yeah, like a PCP?
I can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask who it is.
I was just
That would be
kidding.
totally against code.
You'd
Of
go
course
right
I have
to
a
him.
doc.
Yeah, yeah.
Of
You'd
course
want
I have
the
a doctor.
doctor.
Doctor's doctor. A doc's doc.
Well, it's like anything else. Doctoring yourself is impossible. Like I'm very slow to pull the trigger on like self-treatment with antibiotics for headaches. Like I'll suffer through a headache without taking ibuprofen. Meanwhile, somebody will be like, "What should I do for my headache?" I'm like, "Take
an
ibuprofen."
ibuprofen, yeah.
You know, and I'll like just try to wiggle through it without anything.
My last barber cut his own hair.
What?
Yeah.
How?
I don't know. Mirrors.
I don't even know how hair cutting works, in all honesty.
Well,
Scissors
he's-
and razors.
He's so
I don't
good at it.
understand how it works.
They do it they measure with their fingers, right? Like,
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think
It's
that's
like
right.
flat Earth
Yeah.
to
To round.
round Earth
Yeah.
to me. Like, how does that happen? How
And
do you
not
know
always
it's going to
What's
fall
happening
right?
right here?
But he's so good at cutting hair. He opened a coffee shop.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Moving on. Touchy subject.
Moving on.
In the New York Times is an article.
Drives an
that
infinity.
that's the other guy, new guy, that says that the Surgeon General
Yeah.
is promoting a warning label on alcohol here in the United States.
Imagine that.
He says that according to the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy,
Yep.
alcohol directly contributes to 100,000 cancer cases and 20,000 related deaths each year.
Yeah.
But supporters of moderate drinking, including makers of wine, beer, and spirits, and some physicians and scientists, argue that a little alcohol each day may reduce cardiovascular disease.
So it's complete garbage on the reduction of disease. Zero. It's zero. It is what it is. Right?
Drinking a little bit every day does not reduce anything.
No, and
It's not like an apple a day takes the doctor.
yeah,
away.
and they came
Or
out
at what cost?
right, and they came out and proved that. So that's an old thing.
Okay.
People are going to grasp onto it. The fact that it causes cancer and they're talking about 100,000 and 20,000 is such an understatement, right? So it just that alone, I think drunk driving accidents alone are significantly higher, but and deaths. But the crazy part to me is how does it take somebody like that to make that statement to have people then believe it when it's clear as day already?
So do you think that alcohol should have the skull and bones on it?
I think alcohol is probably one of the most deadly substances of abuse on the planet. Yeah. I don't think there should be anything shy about saying this can kill you, so drink at your own risk. That should be said every time.
Yeah, but do you think people like go into the liquor store and like, this is good for me? Don't they know that? Aren't they accepting the risk and taking on the responsibility when they drink? I mean, I did.
I think they do, but I also think you can't underestimate what people don't know in terms of maybe someone who's not as educated in that realm of life.
So he went on to say that it is alcohol is the third preventable cause of cancer, only after
tobacco and obesity.
Yeah.
But food,
that's the inherent problem. I think with all this stuff is like people don't really see death. Like what they do is going to lead them to their demise. Like I think that culturally speaking, like we have a really bad relationship with death. Like we only talk about it when someone dies, it's close to us, and then we deal with it for 2 days, and then bereavement's over. So like thinking about your own mortality is probably the best mental exercise you can go through, and thinking about what's actually going to expedite that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
You mean to improve the quality of your life or make sure that you're getting the most out of it?
Both.
Or what happens, or like posthumously, what happens after you die?
Like I think people are like, I mean, remember back when you were 20s and like, nothing's going to kill me. I can smoke, drink, do all this shit. Like,
Amen. Yeah.
Get in a car. Like you
drive
don't
100 miles
think
per
about
hour.
it.
It's true.
And then so like, what's the excuse for having those same habits at 35 and 45? It's like you really just don't get how much pressure you're putting on yourself, like how much life you're squeezing out of yourself, right, by doing those things.
Yeah.
If we think or you think that the alcohol should have a skull and bones on it for
I don't think that'll
label,
do
whatever.
anything. But
Okay. Only after tobacco, which has a skull and bones on it, and
Does it?
obesity, well, it has the warning, the Surgeon General's warning, this may cause
Yeah.
cancer. They're saying alcohol should do the same, have the
Okay.
same kind of warning. Shouldn't Doritos then, or M&Ms?
Yeah, I mean, everything.
It's the second preventable leading cause of cancer is obesity.
Yeah.
But there's no warnings on food labels. It's just an ingredients list.
So here.
Why should alcohol be treated any differently?
My entire discussion revolves around one thing. I don't really care. I mean, this is going to sound harsh, but like, I don't really care what anybody does.
Sure.
As long as they want to take accountability for
Totally,
it.
I'm with you.
So if
And don't hurt other people.
yeah, right. Like if you want to do, I always use the analogy, like if you want to do cocaine in your house, I don't care. But if you end up naked in my driveway, like screaming at my kids, like, yeah, then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
What it comes down to for me is reimbursement for consequence. So like if you are morbidly obese and you require 8 ambulance rides a month out of your house because you have trouble breathing, and then the hospital has to work on you, and your medical bills and things like that aren't covered by what you're investing in your health, and I need to pay for that. Or if you're a smoker and you end up on therapies that then I need to contribute to your care, that bothers me. The food industry stuff with like the Doritos and the M&Ms is a gray zone for me because it's so multivariable, right? Like, but if you take cigarettes and alcohol and you just got rid of them,
Yeah.
like you don't need them. Like you need food.
You don't need Doritos. You don't need
But
M&Ms.
you need corn. You need
I'm not talking about
carbohydrate.
corn.
No, but that's what I'm saying. So food can be argued to be like a substance in a different form. Like if you took the ingredients of Doritos, like that's a vegetable with an oil, with a salt, with a pepper. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Say another way, if you didn't have any food but you had Doritos will keep you alive.
Correct.
Alcohol won't.
So,
alcohol,
do you think that
cigarettes.
food should not have a warning label on it?
I mean, I've been itching to say this. It's like if people understood, or if people looked at it this way, the cost of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it.
Okay.
Now you can use that barometer on everything you do.
Yeah.
Watching TV, going to work, healthy habits, anything. You are trading off your time for your life.
That's the point. I agree with you. I think that people need to understand that the decisions that they make have an impact on their life, on the rest of their
100%.
life, on their future, on their health. So a warning label seems just like superfluous and almost moot.
That's actually a great thing. Instead of a cancer label, it's like that's a -20.
Every time you eat a
like,
Dorito, you lose 10 minutes.
I can certainly go to the gym, which is deemed a healthy thing unless it becomes an addiction, which we can get into that.
Sure.
But I could go to the gym on a Saturday morning, and someone would be like, "Well, don't you want to spend time with your kids on Saturday morning?" You know, like I had
there's
to
a
make
cost.
that.
Yeah.
I traded it off.
No doubt.
Right? Like it's an opportunity cost of doing whatever. Everything has an opportunity cost to it. But if people looked at alcohol and, working, being a workaholic or whatever it is, that they're not going to get that time back. Like, time is it, right? You have a finite amount of time and you don't know how much time you actually have. So what benefit is it to you to partake in activities that are actually decreasing the amount of time you have on this planet?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't get it.
Well, what about the opposite? How do you get the encouragement that this is a plus 20? Like, oh, you did 300 jumping jacks today. You just
Because
lived
you
an
could still
extra
die
10
in a
minutes.
car accident tomorrow.
No doubt. Well,
You know what I mean? And but again, this is where you get to choose
So are
the
you
probability.
Are you anti Skull and Bones or pro Skull and Bones?
I just don't think it does anything.
It just has no purpose.
It's
To each their
performative
own.
at best.
How about some fact checks?
Fact checks.
A furry. A furry
yeah.
is someone who is interested in anthropomorphic animals or animals with human characteristics. Furries may create their own animal character called a fursona, which can be a dog, cat, reptile, bird, wild animal, or mythical creature. They can represent their fursona through art, writing, online identities, or by wearing a fursuit, which is an elaborate costume that depicts their animal. Regarding furries and sexual fetishes. Examples of sexual aspects within the furry fandom include erotic art and furry-themed cybersex, and the term yiff is sometimes used to indicate sexual activity or sexual material within the fandom.
Yiff.
A yiff.
I'm gonna drop a ton of yiffs.
No doubt.
Yiff it up.
Isn't that what you send people on
Yiff.
text?
A gif.
GIFs?
A yiff.
Whoops, that's the wrong message.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So a fursona.
fursona. We said something close. We were trying to get there the other day.
Yeah.
Futurama?
Futurama, I think we were right there.
Yeah.
Samsonite.
Swanson.
Sexual fetishes. Studies show that only 14% of people will bring up a kink or fetish with their sexual partner, even though 36% of Americans have a kink or fetish.
Only 36%.
That's what the
These
data
numbers
says.
are. How do they get these?
It's got to be like 100%.
I don't know if it's they or if it's me. I mean, I Google it. First article that pops up goes right into the script.
I see.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm like really into the
So
weeds here.
14% of people have one
no.
or actively bring it into their
40% of
sex
people
life?
have one, but
Okay.
only 14% of people will bring it up to their partner.
Isn't that such a weird fucking thing? Like, which means a lot of people probably are with the person that they shouldn't be with sexually, right? Like, if you can't like really let your kinks out, like you got a fucking problem. Like, if you want to sniff feet,
Yeah.
sniff some fucking feet, but like the person you're with every day should let you sniff their feet if that's what you want to do, or you're with the wrong person.
So
I think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what Grandma said.
Yeah. No, Grandma said, why buy the cow if you can
My
have the
best
sex for
advice.
free?
Smell the feet at home.
Yeah. So if you want, I tend to agree with you. If you want
I use that as an example.
Of
Yeah,
course.
of course. Yeah. None of this should be taken literally. If you want to, whatever, sniff your partner's feet, but I guess it's an insecurity thing. I can't tell you if it's because they're afraid that their partner's going to think they're weird.
Yeah.
Not participate.
Right.
Ostracize themselves because, like, especially, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that guys probably tend to have higher or weirder fantasies than
Sure.
women do.
I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a good stat or a good data. That
Well,
would be an interesting fact.
Socially, it's more acceptable for a guy to have some weird fetishes because a woman with like a weird fetish will get like, you can't be like that.
So this material went off on sort of a tangent about furries watching furry porn, and the numbers were almost identical, and both of them were over 80%. Now,
I mean males, females.
yeah, males, females, which among the furry community watches furry porn?
I'd also like to see the percentage of furries that are males. Like, so let's say
Out
out of every 100 furry, 90 of them are men.
Yeah.
Like, and the percent, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that would also be a good fact
Yeah.
check. We got to write these down better. But I started to wonder.
Marcus.
Marcus, write that down, please. I don't know what the definition of viewing porn is. Is it like you turned it on and you're like, this is cool, and then you started watching baseball? Or is it like if it becomes a sexual activity, like there's a beginning and there's an end? So I don't actually know what that is. So Marcus got his homework out for him. Condiment calories. According to healthline.com, that's on the internet, the 5 best condiments for you are kimchi, mustard, tahini, salsa, and pesto.
Salsa's a good one. You can use a ton of
I don't
salsa.
even.
looks
I don't consider
exasperated.
kimchi a condiment.
What is kimchi?
like a side
It's-
dish. It's a cabbage that's
Fermented.
fermented and
It's a Korean, right? Korean
yeah.
dish. Right.
It's really good.
It's good.
Spicy.
It's
So you're
like
saying you-
sauerkraut.
Oh, so sauerkraut was on there.
Oh yeah.
That's a
But
condiment.
I also don't know
You'd
what
never
they're
just eat
talking
sauerkraut,
about.
would you? Would you ever just be like, let me get a bowl of sauerkraut? That sounds harsh.
I don't know.
I don't either.
But to me, that's like almost like a garnish.
Okay.
Like, is lettuce a condiment?
No, good question though. Good analogy.
Tomato, like onions, like
Mustard is completely calorie free.
But yeah, like how are they defining healthy too? Like kimchi is like any fermented item is generally healthy for you.
Yeah, good for your gut.
Why? What happens to it that through the fermentation
Like the
process?
pre and probiotic aspects of it.
Fermenting
for
is
gut
just
health?
leaving something over time, isn't it? Or does it actually have to be in another substance?
Usually vinegar.
Yeah.
Like when you make
Kimchi's in-
wine, you're not putting the grapes in vinegar, but it
No, it's like
ferments.
the yeast.
Yeah, wine has all bacteria and yeast that like chew on the grape. I don't know the wine process really well, but
Marcus,
kimchi.
fact check.
Yeah, kimchi's cabbage that's in vinegar, kind of acidic type environment, and just sits over time.
But why is that better for you? You're saying
Because
the probiotic and process. Does something happen to
Microprocessors.
does
No,
something
but
happen to food when you put it in vinegar that makes it better for you?
well, yeah, you're actually taking advantage of the pre and probiotic element to fermented foods, so it aids in like gut health.
Via the vinegar or via the food itself?
I think
'Cause
the
vinegar is ultimately
fermentation
combination
too, right?
process.
Okay.
And I don't remember
Vinegar's really good
ninth
for
grade
you.
biology all that well, so I don't want to speak out of line here.
Sure,
I
yeah.
wish we had a medical doctor to help us with.
We
With
should get a
fermenting.
ninth grade biology
Marcus.
teacher on here. Yeah.
Marcus.
This kid's got a lot of fuck. We're making up for what he skipped last week. We had to shoot it on an iPhone like a bunch of fucking chumps.
It worked.
The five.
Yeah, it's healthy for you.
All right, let's get you a microphone if you're going to talk back there, pal. The
Sit
five
down.
worst condiments for you: queso, syrup, barbecue sauce, fat-free salad dressing, and ranch dressing.
Who considers syrup a condiment? What
I
are we
would say
talking about?
That's more
here?
than kimchi. Like you're not going to eat again syrup on its own. It's not fermented. It's just
And
something
syrup
you
is
put it
just
on something.
nasty
How's that any
sugar-
different? Is mustard or ketchup a condiment?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I guess I'm looking at condiment as
Yeah.
outside of breakfast foods.
Yeah.
And then syrup, like
Oh,
syrup
yeah.
can be an
when do you put a
ingredient.
condiment on a breakfast food?
Like, is condiment just a fancy word for ingredient?
Some people
Like,
put ketchup on bacon, egg, and cheeses. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not on
Yeah.
it, but some
What?
people do. You do?
Yeah, why would you not?
I thought it was a
On eggs?
Massachusetts thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
just in general.
I have no problem with that.
out.
I'm just like the syrup.
yeah, syrup.
I just would never consider a I
But
guess
syrup-
it is by
Number 4.
definition.
And most of the syrups you get now are not like from a tree.
But is sugar a condiment?
No, that's got to be an
an
ingredient.
ingredient.
Why? I could just put some sugar over
Powder.
fruit.
Yeah, so then salt is what's not. I'll send an email to
Fact check,
helpline.com.
fact
Another
check.
fact
What-
check. God.
define condiment.
Well, now I'm afraid to do fact checks because I've failed 4 in a row.
No, these are
You
good.
didn't fail. The internet
Yeah,
failed
the internet
you.
failed me. The
Yeah.
internet failed me. I was watching too much
You're doing
porn.
great.
That's the problem.
Who invented
Furries.
the
Furry
internet?
porn.
The president-elect.
Michael Dukakis?
No.
It's interesting
Al Gore.
that you
Al Gore.
asked that question. So, but when I was a kid, my brother was kind of geeky, and we had this thing called Prodigy. Are you familiar with it?
I remember that.
So I'll fact check this just because it's stirring up some nostalgic memories for me. But it was pre
AOL.
AOL,
Yeah.
and it was what we now know as the internet. So like you could reach other places on
started
the
with
planet.
military.
It wouldn't surprise me. But my brother's also the kid that read the Q Basic book in high school,
Right.
Adam?
start to finish. Not Adam, the other one. Shout out to Adam. Sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a condition that causes people to stop breathing or breathe slowly while they sleep. These interruptions can range from 5 to over 100 times per hour, and each interruption typically lasts 10 to 20 seconds. There are 2 types of sleep apnea, and obstructive sleep apnea is the most common. Sleep apnea can occur at any age, even in infants, and can increase as you get older. 7% of Americans suffer from sleep apnea. If my kid stopped breathing for 20 seconds, I would have a fucking heart attack. So is that what SIDS is?
No, SIDS is different. They don't
It's
really
a-
know what causes SIDS.
It's when the kid just stops breathing, right? I don't want to talk about
sudden
this.
infant death.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to freak me out. But nevertheless, sleep apnea affects 7%
I thought
of
the
Americans.
last it was almost like an overactive parasympathetic response is what I read once.
In children or
For
in
In
anything?
children,
Okay.
it's almost like death feigning
Yeah,
in
but,
animals.
But apnea, sleep apnea is like the most relevant version for people to know about is just big necked, obese people
Or strong.
or strong, and their neck just compresses their airway.
So I can't sleep, and I'm seriously considering doing a sleep apnea study, especially now that you can take a shot to cure it.
Yeah.
To wear the mask, I'm probably out. I'm too vain and insecure, but if I could take a shot, no problem.
One of the
shot for it?
advantages of being
Or
part
is it
of
surgery. Might be a surgery.
There's a Inspire surgery where it like
it's a stimulant to the muscles in there to help you.
One shot,
But
one
if
time?
you want, as an advantage
it's
of being,
surgery, you get something implanted.
of
Sounds
being a
good.
health member, we can do an at-home sleep study. You don't even have to leave your house.
But do I have to wear a mask?
They ship it right to you. It's a little mask you put on. It uploads into the.
How am I going to vape?
Well, yeah, that'll
Right.
be
We got a lot of stuff to figure out.
They
midnight
have an
vape.
attachment.
Want to talk about fasting?
Should
Sure.
we?
I mean,
So
Yeah.
I picked up on 3 fasting fads. I'm sure there are more. One is called the 5 to 2, where you eat normally for 5 days a week and eat only about 600 calories on the other 2 days. There's another one called 16 and 8, where you eat normally within an 8-hour period and abstain for the remaining 16 hours. And then there's alternate day fasting, where you eat normally for 1 day and then fast the next. So, Matt Nolan did some really hardcore research on this.
Clearly.
What kept popping up to me, and which I thought was worth talking about, is when I think about fasting, certainly before I got into all of this, was the religious aspect of it. So, Jesus in the Bible fasted for 40 days.
Right.
Ramadan, they fast. Observant Jews will fast for a lot of their high holidays. The Native American culture would fast as part of their religious experiences. There must be some sort of intrinsic value to your soul in fasting. Is there a health benefit or concern that comes along with fasting? Or has it just gotten blown out of proportion where it's no longer like a viable option or reasonable option for people?
I'll just start like 30,000 foot view, very objective, is that most of the benefits, like from a clinical perspective of fasting, can be replicated if you can control for the amount of calories you're taking in. So when they say, when you're saying like, hey, there's this health benefit from fasting, it's typically because there's a reduction in calories, which allows that person to lose weight or not eat as much shitty food. Right.
Okay.
So the reduction of calories and or the reduction of hyper palatable, highly processed foods are reduced, and therefore we see a health benefit, whether that's weight reduction, cardiovascular benefit, blood pressure, so on and so forth. So outside of that, then we can get into like more subjective elements of fasting, whether it be spiritual, religious, or general well-being or a sense of well-being. But if we just control for calories, meaning calories are the same, whether you eat in 2-hour windows or 20-hour windows, the benefit is the same.
So then
If I miss something, you can chime
would
in.
a healthier person then, somebody who already is in control of their calories, not yield the benefit from fasting? It sounds like that's what you're saying. If you're eating a ton of shitty food and then for the next 3 days you don't, you're going to see a health benefit.
Correct.
But if you're not eating shitty food and you just want to get healthier, like Mike Ranfone, who eats well and he wants to fast for 3 days, is your body going to see any benefit?
Not really.
Forget about the caloric deficit.
Nope.
Some people, some of the research, some of the internet says like your body, your organs are gonna like rejuvenate. They're gonna build better cells. You're gonna feel healthier. Is that true?
Autophagy.
So yeah, the biggest thing is if you thought of your body like a factory, and if you just shut all the machines down for a couple days, the wear and tear on the machines is going to be 0, right?
Yep.
Okay. Or if you overloaded the machines every day, the wear and tear on the machine is going to be really high.
Yep.
But what if you ran the machines at the right amount with the right repair and the right maintenance, and every night for a couple hours you shut it down, did a couple dusting things, replaced the oil? Like, your machines are going to last a really long time. So the human body's the same. If you are overstressing it with dietary intake,
If you're fat.
or just in general, like aside from
bulking.
anything, I'm just thinking about the GI tract as exposure to food, right?
Okay.
And fasting is no exposure, and overconsumption is overexposure. So if you overconsume on a daily basis with garbage and bad intake, you're going to overstress that system.
Sure.
And then if you fast, you'll essentially let that entire system rest. But you can also just give it the right amount of what it needs on a daily basis, and it will not be overstressed or underused. And fasting has now become a way to control calories, right? So as Mike said, and we harp on this quite a bit, if you can't control your calories throughout a 24-hour period and you need like a really focused way to do it, yes, fasting is great because in a 6-hour window, you're not going to be able to consume as much as you would if you ate for 14 hours a day.
In theory.
But if you just need to do it the right way, you can also scatter those calories out throughout the regular time frame of a normal working day or whatever day you're awake and have the same effect in terms of health benefit.
Mike, remind me, if my number is 2,200 calories a day, does it matter if I eat them in the first hour when I wake up or over the 16 hours I'm awake?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, so
from the bird's eye perspective.
Yeah. So high level.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Because we're talking about a strategy as opposed to a tactic. So let's just say the overarching strategy is calorie reduction.
Yeah.
However you do that, you do that. That gets into the tactics. Like Marco alluded to, maybe cutting down the window that you can actually consume said calories allows you to eat less. So that's the tactic you employ to eat less food overall, which is the strategy, right? And I think a lot of people get mixed up with tactics and strategies, especially when it comes to nutrition. That's why there's all these different types of diets, which like almost every diet plan out there is in some way, shape, or form calorie reduction via elimination of something. Intermittent fasting is the elimination of time that allows you to eat.
Yeah.
Keto is the elimination of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Paleo, so everything is about reduction of calories. And I'm just like, whatever works, whatever makes the most sense that you can consistently execute on over the decades and decades that you're going to do this, I'm all about.
But then somebody once argued with me on the fasting thing because I was like, it's not great for performance, and you know, as long as you do calorie,
because you need fuel.
Yeah, and then they'll use an example like there was some NFL guy who like Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
he fasts and he does it, but it's like, all right, you're taking the most extreme example of a freak already, an outlier. Yeah, okay, so don't use that as your like normal.
Give some context. I have no idea who that is.
So it's a guy who's 6'3", 260 pounds, probably 8% body fat year round, plays in the NFL. Like he has this weird like sleep eat habit and he does fasting. But you're using like an outlier already.
That's not me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like and he's genetically different than even most of the people in the NFL.
Would you ever ask somebody to include it in their regimen? Have you ever suggested somebody fasted?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Why? Like what is somebody saying to you when they're sitting in your office that you're like, you know what might be a good idea is to try this?
Yeah, it's usually like, let's say that the constraint is I don't really know how to make a good breakfast, a healthy breakfast that aligns with my macro profile or my calorie amount.
Yep.
And no matter what, I always end up eating a donut. Yep. It's like, you know what? Let's just eliminate breakfast for a little bit. Let's just see what happens. And so here's the psychological benefit of creating a tolerance to being hungry. Because we're so used to having food available to us all the time. Yep. That it's almost, that's the habit. That's the psychological. We talked about the psychological cravings aspect. It's like, if we just wait a while, it goes away.
It's very good.
But it's something that you have to practice because we're so used to having food readily available to us.
Yep.
So if you can increase your tolerance to being hungry, you actually don't have to eat as much. But if you don't ever practice that, you're not good at it.
Along the same lines, as I started inputting my nutrition in the food that I ate into the app, I've noticed the trend that I've gotten better at breakfast and lunch, and I think ultimately I'll get better at dinner. But to that point, it's like, all right, well, if I was having a really hard time with breakfast, skip breakfast, right? So I was having a really hard time getting macros, and I just slowly implemented them into each one of those two meals. And then by the time I get to dinner, I can still have that Matt Nolan phase where I'm still trying to figure out what I want to eat.
Right.
But what you can learn over by understanding your habits better or your weak points, you can get better.
Awareness.
I mean, you just need to think about like the reptilian brain in the animal world is like the most basic, right? Yeah. They want to eat when they want to eat. They don't when they don't. They don't have emotions, whatever. They're driven purely by food. So when humans say like, when I fast, I feel a ton of energy. Okay, we are not in a hunt and kill for your food environment anymore. So like, you don't get energy from hunger and then go out and like tackle a
Kill
deer
somebody,
and
yep.
eat it, right? So those energy levels are focused in different places. The reason I bring this up is if you have a snake that's unfed for a month and you stick your hand in its cage, it's gonna bite you. Because it's just like, I'm going to eat whatever's around
Yep.
it. It has a ton of energy. They move a lot, right? Because they're searching for food. If you feed a snake, it then will lay on a brick digesting, and you could touch it and poke it, whatever. It's not
Won't
gonna.
move.
It doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Humans are the same, right? So when people say fasting gives me energy, yeah, because your reptilian brain, the part of you that you can't control, is literally saying to itself, like,
I'm starving.
I need to start hunting, right? So yeah, you get adrenaline, you get epinephrine, you get release of growth hormone, you get surges of chemicals in your body to drive your body to go search for that next consumable piece of the environment, being food, to give you the energy back to replace what you're losing. So the energy is like a false kind of sense of hope, right? So fasting to give you that energy is not an ideal scenario if you can just consume a reasonable amount of food throughout the course of a day without binging. And if you talk to a lot of people that are binge eaters, they're probably not good at eating on a regular basis.
Sure.
So the people that are like, well, I eat a ton of candy at night before I go to bed, and then I wake up in the middle of the night and I don't feel well. Well, you've probably been eating a ton of shit throughout the day, and you finish your day off with an extra bit of candy before bed.
Sounds familiar.
But if you were eating like grilled chicken and everything leading up to that, and you eat a box of cereal before you go to bed, it usually does nothing to you. And there was a study just out about carbohydrates consumed right before going to sleep, and it really makes no difference on insulin spike, on anything if you're a well-trained body.
But what if your carbohydrates are coming from sugar?
Yeah, it made no difference actually. Like if you consumed 100 grams of that at 8 a.m., noon, or right before bed, it changed nothing. No sleep.
Yeah, the only thing I'd want to know about that study is like what the like kind of the demos of the population was.
Yeah,
like, are they muscular
fit
or are they
people.
not?
Oh,
Right.
yeah, okay. Yeah, what
You know
kind,
what I mean?
what kind
'Cause
of people are you studying?
Because that's going to be the bigger driver for some of those blood markers is how much muscle mass
Are you healthy?
carry.
Are you unhealthy?
But I did want to get back to the, like Marco made a good analogy about the machines.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the human body, nothing happens in a vacuum. So, like, yes, there's upside to, let's say, fasting to a point. And then you get diminishing returns, and then you get negative returns, because essentially what you're doing is creating such a huge stress response. You're putting yourself in a catabolic state, and it's really hard to judge subjectively. Like, is this the good part or is this the bad part? But what happens if you allow that to go long enough, you end up binge eating anyways.
Yeah.
And you're not probably going to eat the chicken and broccoli. You're probably going to have the most hyper palatable, convenient food imaginable, because you're not planning for anything. You're just managing your compromises.
So if you starve yourself for long enough, the health benefit starts to diminish.
Yeah, probably.
Right. And then you're going to go ahead and eat the fucking everything at the convenience store front clerk checkout. You're like, give me 6 Snickers and the bag of peanuts.
Yeah, if you
and
didn't
then
like,
eat
if
all
you
that
don't
shit.
have dinner waiting at home,
Yeah.
McDonald's looks really
Sure
freaking
does.
good when
Sure
you're
does.
20 hours deep in a fast.
What about the benefits of lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure, improved blood sugars, less inflammation, better brain health, fewer age-related diseases, and longer life?
Yeah, so I also think this comes down to, like Mike said, the subjects involved in the research, right? So for an unhealthy population of people, restricting calories through any form is going to help benefit all of those things.
Sorry.
But if you took the average, say, gym goer who's conscious of what they're eating already, they're already in a healthy place with caloric intake, and you make them fast, you might not see any benefit really to what they're doing.
Because basically what all those items that you just listed are basically all-cause mortality.
Yeah.
So, and we also know that the higher obesity level of obesity an individual has, all-cause mortality becomes more of a thing, right? So if we reduce the calories, we reduce their weight, their obesity, their BMI, whatever, all-cause mortality goes down.
Yeah.
So again, if you control for all calories being equal in any of these tactics, you get similar outcomes.
If somebody has a problem with eating or calorie intake and they become obese or out of shape or overweight, is Or do you think that the new weight loss drugs that are out there are viable options for these people?
Yeah, without a doubt.
The concern that comes along with it that I've been made aware of is when you use these drugs, you can become undernourished because it essentially just kills your appetite.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just don't eat.
You definitely need to keep an eye on that. So we use them frequently.
You do?
Yeah, and I think there's some people that like need them, right? I've had amazing results from diabetic patients.
When you say need, are you saying because people lack the self-control to eat healthy?
Well, a combination. So I've had patients with like a measurable issue with their sugar control, right? What's called hemoglobin A1C in the high 6s and 7s. So they're essentially diabetic. They're not a full-blown diabetic yet because their pancreas is still producing insulin. They're still kind of hanging on for dear life. And I've now had a very good response with the GLP-1s in reversing all of that and now getting them off it, right? So I have a lot of people weaning off it that are starting to reintroduce their normal carbohydrate stuff. They started exercising again. But they have to be bought into everything, right? So if you are adjusting your lifestyle as you're adjusting your medications, as you're adjusting your diet, then the result is amazing. But if somebody were to just sit there and be like, I'm not doing anything and just give me the med, well, that's not going to work.
So I was thinking about as when I left rehab, they would put me on Suboxone, which is like a blocker for opiates. And then I would wean myself off of it. But it was because I just knew I didn't have the self-control to just, at this point, I hadn't become healthy, like as if I was trying to lose weight, to not use drugs yet. But then I tapered off of it, and then ultimately I made the decision
we talk
myself.
about this, it's almost like long-term triage. It's like trying to figure out the biggest risk. So let's just say you're overweight, your blood panel looks like crap, and a lot of that is because you don't have a good relationship with food, you can't control, you don't exercise, whatever, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The big thing that we can move right now is let's just manage your appetite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because when you reduce someone's weight, they're also more prone to do exercise, because exercising when you're morbidly obese is really shitty. It's like everything sucks when you're that big. So like if we can just start the process by eliminating or minimizing their weight, and then all these other things clean up, we can use other interventions down the line that address the other needs of that individual with behavioral modification, which is the long-term fix, which no one talks about in these studies.
Are the weight loss drugs finite? Is there a beginning and an end? You're like, hey, we're going to go on this for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or are they result-driven?
So what I try to do is, I give people usually, depending on their body composition on the DEXA scan and our goals, I give them a time frame built out. So I'll say, all right, we're on a 6-month on board for 2 months. Let's cruise for 2 months, and then let's off board for 2. Or we're going to do 8 months or 9 or a year or whatever. It's a quote unquote cycle of it to try to get them to a point where then they're off it. But involved in the cycling of the medications is the kind of mental aspect to the game too. So in these time frames, learning how to eat, discovering what's better food for you, and then on the offboarding, reintroducing good stuff. Like as your appetite starts to increase again, as you're coming off the meds, like don't go grab the bag of Doritos. Like have your house stocked with carrots and bananas and apples and whatever else that's a healthier item. So when you do reach for something to eat again, you're reaching for the good stuff. But I think they're an amazing addition. And this is why when you bring up the fasting, we don't poo-poo fasting as a tool to help you get to a goal.
Okay.
We shit on it as the
end-all,
be-all of health, and it's going to make you live longer. No. GLP-1s are the same thing. Like, yes, I will shit on GLP-1s. If you want to lose 5 pounds for a vacation, you don't need a GLP-1. Or if you're sitting on the couch and you're skinny fat and you do not change your exercise habits, GLP-1s are not for you. But if you're somebody who walks in my office, you're like, I want to lose 50 pounds. I'm starting to go to the gym. I'm starting to recognize my habits. I'm going to eat well. I'm giving you the effort. I'm more than happy to use those as an aid in getting to that goal while building the other things they need in their life, socially and in terms of their eating habits, to offboard and then live a better life on the back end.
So are you guys not the ones to talk to if I just want to go on the weight loss med? It has to be part of a bigger program?
No, I have a weight loss program, but we do need to check. Like, so I had a person come in who their doctor was like, you just need weight loss meds, whatever, and started them on weight loss meds on GLP-1.
Yeah.
All right. They were losing weight. Fine. They had no appetite and they were feeling like shit, like total garbage. They're like, I don't know why I feel like shit. Well, I ran a set of labs and their fasting insulin was essentially 0, which seems that's terrible, right?
Okay.
You need to have some insulin. Their hemoglobin A1C was still pretty elevated, and a measure of how often they fluctuate their sugars was really low, meaning they fluctuate them a ton. The point is, without that testing, their pancreas was totally burnt out. They're a type 1 diabetic. So there was really no coming back. So giving them a GLP-1 was fucking their appetite, but also they weren't eating. So then they were actually hypoglycemic. Their sugars were too low. So if you don't do the labs, if you don't actually use the data to drive the treatment, and you just throw these GLP-1s out willy-nilly, like you can go online and just order them, you know, it might not be a high percentage, which is why they're getting away with these like just random buy it online shit. But you could possibly really injure people severely.
If somebody is trying to lose weight, Mike, and they come in and they say, my caloric intake is, I don't know, pick a number, 5,000. Mm-hmm. Do you shock their system, maybe not by fasting, but drop them to a healthier caloric intake all the way to 2,200 from 5,000? Or is there also a tapering process with caloric intake?
It's usually a conversation based on how aggressive that they want to be and how aggressive we need to be. So if there's like they have a great risk of a cardiovascular event and it's like, hey, I got to lose weight now.
Yeah.
You know, then we could be a little bit more aggressive. But the whole idea of learning, like we talk about this a lot, is like learning the skills. It's like, what skill is that they don't possess right now so that they can get to a reasonable amount of food that is also providing them benefit for exercise, for the quality of life that they want. But if they're that high, and I know you're using some large numbers here, but if they were at, let's say 3,000, them going to like 2,200, probably changing some food qualities, they won't even notice the difference in calories, but their body will. So the old thought is that about 3,500 calories of caloric deficit will result in 1 pound of weight loss. We can make that pretty easily, you know, based on the food groups that they're eating from. So they'll see the result, which is also a positive reinforcement for what they're doing.
But not notice the difference in eating.
Correct.
Is the opposite of that also true, to increase weight?
Only fat.
Okay. Only fat.
Gaining and losing fat is relatively simple math.
Yeah.
Muscle takes a while. And that's also more contingent on your medical history, your training age, a lot of your hormones, things of that nature. So
can you withdraw from food or from sugar? People that have like eating habits, do they walk in and like, do they emotionally feel worse? Is their body responding in a bad way because they've dropped so much in their intake and bad foods or bad sugars?
They certainly can. I mean, like it is all.
Is it a
like
concern when you're coming up with a dietary plan for somebody that's overweight? Let's say morbidly overweight, to say like, hey, you're at 3,500 calories. We need to, like, to your what you're talking about. We're going to get you to 2,500. Hopefully you don't notice a change in your nutrition or actually what you're consuming. It's just going to differentiate your caloric intake.
Yeah.
Is there ever a concern that this person's eating 40 lollipops a day? Now we're going to cut them down to 0, and that lack of sugar is going to shock their system negatively?
No, I don't have that concern because if they're, I mean, even if, think about it this way, if someone is eating that much, they usually don't understand how much they're eating. Because the classic line is like, oh, I didn't even eat that much. And then they eat 30 lollipops. And they're like, that's not that much. Well, that's just because you normalized it. You know, so they have no idea how much food they're actually eating. And if we do replace that with, you know, like, let's say lower glycemic carbohydrates, more protein, like they don't have the energy crashes that you would think based on like the numbers.
Does their exercise programming differentiate from somebody else who walks into the gym and isn't overweight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big time.
Are like more monitoring, more data inputs, like because they're at higher risk for injury, right? Not just physical injury, but cardiovascular. I mean,
correct.
They're already okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there's usually, and I'm going to generalize here, if they're that overweight, I would also assume that they're fairly unfit. So we'd want to work on what would be more aerobic style training. Which is
meaning
just
something about your
it's just the
oxygen?
Like level of intensity that they're going to be training at. Like they don't have the horsepower or the reserve to train. Like what you're doing now like your program right now,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have been able to do 2 years ago when you started.
Sure. Can you tell us the difference between anaerobic and aerobic, please?
It's just aerobic is an oxygen-based energy system, and anaerobic is without oxygen.
Okay.
And it's basically the duration of which you're training at.
So there's nothing to do with like cardio versus resistance training.
No, you can have an anaerobic weight training session and an anaerobic cardio session.
So I was out to dinner last night with If You Can't Pet It, and he had said that he heard that introducing cardio at the end of your workout will help you lose weight, and doing it before is like a moot exercise.
No.
Any truth to that?
Nope.
Interesting.
So I mean, like, so
have you heard that before?
Yeah, totally. And,
Okay.
and everyone's trying to position like their, like, especially when it comes to exercise, like they have a proprietary way of doing things that does X, and that's just false.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
It's a given.
there's better ways. Don't get me wrong, but there's no true upside of like losing more weight by doing cardio, except for the fact that you're burning some more calories.
Okay.
And if you keep calories the same and you burn more calories, then you lose weight.
Well, is your body more prone or apt to lose a calorie after an hour of resistance training on 30 minutes on the treadmill than it is doing 30 minutes on the treadmill before
I would
you
say
do
it's
resistance
actually,
training?
depending on the preceding training session, how hard you worked, it would
Yeah.
actually could be detrimental because you're fatigued.
Okay.
So your level of fatigue goes up, and therefore your body starts to figure things out, starts to downregulate your ability to perform.
Huh.
So, you know,
You might not get the most out of it.
correct. So like, yeah, that's a good point. So let's say that 30-minute session after your workout,
Yeah.
if you just did that on another day when you're fresh, you're probably going to perform better.
Do you know what's kind of insane? So I've a little bit of a personal experience with this.
Unless it's really low level.
Like the
in terms
way
of demand.
Mike's been.
You talking about the Marco,
No.
low
The
level.
cardio, like if you
just
that-
walk on a treadmill.
if that 30-minute session was just walking on a treadmill, I don't think that, like, it doesn't matter.
It's not detrimental, but
Correct.
You're not saying it's more beneficial than doing it before or in the
Correct.
middle. Okay.
Yeah. It's just like, do you want to spend 3 hours in the gym?
Yeah.
Like I've been through programming where like the cardio is really high intensity. My heart rate's at like mid 80s, and I'm on the bike and I'm on the trainer and this and over and burning X amount of calories. We've now gotten to the point where I've built up enough muscle and we're doing like a lot of eccentric stuff. So the workout, the time under tension is really high, but my rests are about 3 minutes each. So I get to almost fully recover. So the next time I do a set, I don't feel any fatigue and I do the whole set. My calorie burn and calorie intake are significantly higher than when I was doing the cardio-based workouts. I don't feel as fatigued, but I'm really like, it's very difficult to gain weight. So I'm clearly burning like piles of calories in this kind of stressed environment of exercise like that. So kind of an ode to the fact that if you do cardio at the end and you're already tired, your output's going to be pretty low.
Minimal.
And you might end up actually burning less than you would have done if you just did more
Worked out a little
focused
bit harder.
sets early.
Like you just rest
Right.
more.
I think that's where, a little plug for what Mike does at Ranfone Training Systems in terms of his style. Like it's very focused on that individual. So you said like if somebody walks in who's in shape
Yep.
versus somebody who walks in who's purely at a weight loss, like those two styles of programs have to be very different. So you get an obese person walking into one of these like standard, even the little boutique ones where it's like, come do the class with us. We'll get your heart rate up. That overweight person, on the front end, you're going to lose some weight because you just do by default. You're moving and you're not eating as much. Great. But your cortisol jumps. You're not high intensity exercises. You can't really put in enough effort because you're burnt out. You might not have focus on your food. Could actually be detrimental to your end game result because remember, the microcosm is the daily workout. The macrocosm is the month, the week, the year, whatever. So that's why you need like a very focused training exercise program.
You mentioned the rest in between exercises. What is the value in that either 30-second, 2-minute rest in between reps or sets? Is it so that the body can reset and you can go back to the weight you had before? Or are your muscles actually, or heart, whatever, pick a number here, benefiting from that downtime? Because I was struggling with, I hate making it about me, but I mean, other people probably have experienced
Great
this.
example.
We're working on the bench press and trying to get the numbers up, and so we've sort of titrated the set from 753, and then I'm supposed to take a 2-minute rest and then reset and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And my trainer had come over and he said, well, did you rest in between? Because it says at the bottom of all of it, it's like 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever it is. And I'm usually in a rush to get out of there. And so I don't pay attention as much to the rest times as maybe I should, because by the time I got to my second set, which was what his point was, he was like, your body didn't get enough time to rejuvenate and recover. So what am I losing, or what is somebody losing by not listening or following direction or taking that time in between sets that can be actually overall beneficial to them?
So, subjectively, it's like when you cut down rest time, things get harder, right? Because you're carrying more fatigue into each set because you're not allowing for that partitioning effect of work to rest, right? Which can be a very efficacious way of training. However, if you're going to minimize rest, then you can't be working on like specific qualities. So let's take your example where you're pushing higher weight for lower reps, and you're descending the sets or descending the reps to increase the weight, and then you got to do it again. So if you don't come in properly recovered, that second round of 753 just won't be your best. And the idea is to push that level of performance, and we're talking about like absolute performance, not just that it's hard, which is more subjective than objective.
Right, because it could be hard because you're fatigued.
But let's just say you did a set at 200 pounds, and the next time you're supposed to do that set, it should be at 225, which you're actually prepared and ready to do, or prepared to do, but you're not ready to do it because you didn't rest long enough. And you can scale that from minute to minute, day to day, week to week. And that's where like all these adjustments and thought of what does recovery look like and why does it matter to the individual really does matter.
Is that why it seems to me that the training blocks are set up more or less in 4-week increments? Is there a system to that as well to relate to the body?
I mean, like most programs are, I think, have always been written like roughly 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
With the idea of having some kind of framework to see if things are moving in the right direction. And I used to be in the beginning, like years ago, I was like, it's every 4 weeks. Every 4 weeks, we got to change. We got to do something different. Where now it's like, I'd rather let the individual and their performance kind of tell me how long we can stay in a particular phase. So there might be something I'm like, you know, like, cause I write Marco's programs. I'm like, this is going to be 5 weeks. And then he's getting better than I anticipated. So I'm like, I'm not going to change it.
Let's go.
Like, you know what I mean? So it might be a 7-week program all of a sudden, but I can't do that with a predetermined time frame. I have to let his body, his numbers, and let's say he got sick during a week. Like, am I supposed to say, well, the program sucked?
That's right.
Or was there something that lived outside what I could account for initially? You know what I mean? So I'm a little bit more on the dynamic feedback loop way of programming at this point. But yeah, I mean, 4 weeks is just an easy way to write something up and then put it into process.
Practice.
Yeah.
This one's called What If. You ready?
Are we at games?
We're at a game, dude.
Holy
You guys better do better than last week. Every time I'm putting my head
We're
in my
so
hands
good
and
at
saying,
games.
Yeah, you guys
People
are
like the
best.
games.
Who knows?
They love it.
What if? Ready?
What if?
What if you had to give up one of your body parts that you have 2 of? What would it be?
Testicle.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
Because you got the other one.
I was
I
thinking
don't even need them.
nipple. That's your answer?
Yeah.
What if you had to move to another state?
Like,
Where would you go?
Where would I go?
Yeah.
Somewhere warm.
South
say
Carolina.
Florida.
South Carolina.
Good one.
Maybe Texas.
Oh yeah. Texas.
I've never been to Texas. I want to go to Texas.
Austin. I love Austin, Texas. Love it.
I feel like you wanted to say something, but you passed.
Yeah, I gotta.
Okay, all right. Austin.
Like I'd do it all over again.
What if you had to switch professions? What would you do?
A doctor.
Coach.
Look at that.
What if you had to go back in time to a certain decade? When would it be?
90s.
Really?
Yeah, I love the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 90s rule.
They were the best. The music was crazy good. The fucking
Movies.
the clothes were
Summer blockbuster movies.
and
What about just going to Blockbuster?
we were still untrackable with electronics.
Boston
so like
Market.
you could just go.
Just go
like,
do shit.
Be like,
Yeah.
I'll be back later.
Yeah.
And just disappear.
See you in 9 hours,
Yeah,
maybe.
into the world of you can't hide.
Without fear, right?
No fear.
Yeah, totally different.
There's no hiding now.
What if you had to give up one holiday?
Definitely not Easter.
Definitely not Easter.
Valentine's Day, is that a holiday?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. I don't really care about that.
Really? It's
Coincidentally,
just food and family.
watch this. my wife is going away on Valentine's Day to Texas. Yeah.
Austin?
Maybe. We got to find out.
I'll
We'll
share
check.
a candy heart with you.
I want the ones that have the messages on them, like "Be Mine"
Oh yeah,
or
yeah.
"Yours
Choose
truly."
me.
Yeah, do that one. So pick it wisely.
I will.
What if you were stuck on an elevator for 2 hours? Who would you want to be with?
This is what if?
Yeah. What if you were stuck on an elevator
didn't
for
phrase
2
it right.
hours? Oh, sorry.
Who would I want to be with?
Yeah.
Marco.
Aw.
Mike. No, I think I'd like to be on with Elon Musk. Like to pick his brain a little bit.
Got a few questions for you, Elon.
Yeah.
What if you had to get into a fight and had to pick a partner? Who do you pick?
Definitely Mike. Well, it's death. It's either you kill him or he's killing you. So.
No. You need a partner to help.
Yeah,
fight
that's
with
what I'm
you.
saying.
Yeah, Mike's your guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Suits?
I mean, I know a couple special forces guys that
Okay.
I probably would recruit.
I don't know that many special.
Me either.
Yeah.
How about
So,
this one? What if you had to draft a dodgeball team and had to choose one of your friends as your first pick? Who's your guy?
Right now in our
Right now.
current states?
Yeah. Who's your guy?
Marco can sling it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Marco's-
know.
You know,
I don't know who we would fucking draft. Nobody can play dodgeball anymore. Like randomly old guys, or can you draft a young guy?
Why do we do these things?
They're good.
well, what if?
Luke, our old intern, Luke Telbeck.
What if you had to make a mixtape for your partner? What song would definitely be on there?
Sweet Dreams.
Bird on
by
a Wire.
Marilyn Manson.
Okay. What? Bird on a Wire. Way better answer. What if
Vanilla Ice.
you had to tell your kids to watch one movie or read one book? What would you tell them?
One movie?
Or one book?
Shawshank Redemption.
That's a good one.
Fish?
I don't really know. Like,
My dad pushed How to Win Friends and Influence People on me. He's like, you
for a
have to
book.
read this book. It was either or.
Yeah.
Marcus, edit this section.
yeah,
out,
I have no
please.
idea. Actually, I could not recommend either.
If you had to be an athlete, what would you play?
Golf.
I thought about that. It's a ton of travel.
I'd love to be in the NHL.
That's mine too.
Yeah, it'd be fun as
No
shit.
doubt.
Those
Hockey
guys,
players are
Hockey
such fucking
broads.
Yeah, yeah.
badasses.
Groupies.
groupies.
What if you
could change one of your bad habits forever, which would it be?
Oh no, this is not on air.
Mike's like,
what's
I
the
have none.
worst habit that I have? I wish I wasn't so attached to my family.
Oh, what an answer. I wish I didn't work so hard.
I don't know.
What if you could pick
I
up
got
a
rid
new
of a lot
habit
of
and
vices,
start
so-
tomorrow?
What?
Pick up a new habit and start tomorrow.
Something. I wish I played an instrument. In all honesty,
Yeah, music would be good. Art would be cool to be able to
drums. I want to play the drums.
That's a tough one. Keith Moon style. Last one. If you could have one do-over.
You mean what
If you could have one
do.
do-over?
no. How deep do we want to get on this?
Not too deep. I just want it to end, so say something, please.
Oh, all right. Honestly,
this
this is
is
gonna
such a good
no. This is gonna sound really fucked up,
Okay.
but I wish I never drank booze in my life.
Really?
Oh, that's a good
I
one.
really do wish I went through entire life like stone sober, never ever let my brain experience what booze tastes like. Only for one reason, nothing to do with liking it or drinking or like. It'd be interesting to see how you could think without any influence of that.
But don't you think that way now?
Well, right now, but I mean, there's got to be
experiences
some.
that you had would have been so
Yeah,
much
there's
different
gotta be
having
some
not had the
consequence
influence
to
of
it.
alcohol in it.
Correct.
But alcohol's so great, though. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
given
know.
all the downside and cons and consequences that can come along with it, like
It's so great. None of us do it.
I know, but it is fun.
But
dude.
you know
Like,
what's
I don't want to
interesting?
shit on alcohol. Like it's
No.
okay to go have a few drinks and have a good time. I'm a
100%.
huge proponent of
100%.
that.
But it's a weird thing. Like you could hang out with people. Like when I hang out with people that are drinking
Yeah.
now, I have just as much fun, and I feel like I get the same like laughs and stupidity that as if when I was drinking. Like sometimes I'm like, am I fucking drunk and I don't
But
realize
that's for you, and it's not for everybody. Some people do it; they need it to go out and have a good time. They loosen up a little bit, and I think for that purpose, I think it's
Yeah,
great.
no, I'm not poo pooing. I'm just saying it'd be interesting to see what it'd been like not to.
Till next time.
What if?
What if? Yeah.